Well, welcome to the Biblical Worldview Show. I hope you brought a seatbelt because we are going off the rails in this episode. I am super excited. Now, we're not going off the rails of truth. We're going on the rails of truth, but we are going to move you outside of your echo chamber as we look at some video clips and then kind of in real time talk about what the Bible says and how this is kind of off track and how the Bible's truth really corrects that. And I think it's kind of cool because this is a very application episode. And if it goes well, we'll do it again. I'm really excited to explore this for the very first time with the president of RenewaNation, Jeff Keaton. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Hey, I'm glad to be with you, Ben.
Yeah, so we were talking before we got rolling here about a book that has you fired up right now. So before we get to videos, what are you reading that's so exciting?
Well, actually, I've read a number of books in the last, this year I'm on a new book regimen. I won't say what it is because I don't want to jinx myself, but it's a lot. And anyhow, just this week I read John MacArthur's new book, The War on Children. And man, oh, wow, that's powerful. I guess it kind of drove me back to what got me into this business of
There's
giving
not
children.
a war on children, Jeff.
Yeah, right. Oh, man. Now, it drove me back to what got me into this whole work of giving children a biblical worldview. You know, MacArthur's going to go to the Bible and everything. And obviously, I may not agree with 100% of what he says, but I'll tell you what. He drives us back to the Word of God and what God's design is for. He went through this whole thing. God's good design for families, for children, for moms, for dads, for husbands. It's just powerful. I just can't recommend that book. There's plenty of others I could as well, but that's the one I read this week. And it's just an absolute all-out war. I'll tell you one thing that just touched me, man, like it broke my heart. This is not an episode on abortion, but he talked about how, in ancient times, they sacrificed their children to Molech and to, these gods. And he talked about this statue. Man, it's literally got me in tears. He talked about how they would have this statue. They built this statue with his arms out. I'm trying to make it so that viewers can see it. His arms would be out like this. He had like the face of a bear or a lion, but he had a human body. And in his lap was nothing but a fire pit, a white hot fire. And what killed me, man, was they would take those babies alive and place them in that statue's hands. But as soon as the babies felt the heat, they would curl up and fall into the fire. But they would lay them in the hands alive. And I'm going to tell you something. He then obviously throughout this book talked about, they were making an ultimate sacrifice to their God for some reason. Today, we sacrifice, and when it comes to abortion, I heard in his book today, he quoted 75 million babies a year are murdered in the world through abortion. A year.
That's in the United States, and it's like I've heard 65, 67, but there's a lot that aren't being recorded as well.
Right.
So,
no, I'm talking about that was a worldwide number. So it's been 62.5 million in the U.S. in 73.
Okay.
But that was
I'm sorry.
75 million a year worldwide. And we sacrifice them to the gods of materialism, sexuality. We don't want responsibility. And that's not what this episode's about. But I mean, when you talk about a war on children, Satan hates God's offspring. He hates children. He hates humans. And anyhow, man, so you don't want me to go down this book's path. We'll talk about it.
Well, no, but that is what is why the RenewaNation is so needed, why the Biblical Worldview Show, I'm hoping, is helping people, because there's a war on children, and it's not, it is a physical war, but it is also a war of ideas, and it is an idea that lies to a mother that calls murdering her child good, and we have to give the truth. So we're going to do that, and speaking of families, we've got our first video. Let's take a look.
There's a light, a certain kind of light that never shone on me. I want my life to be what God does it do. If I ain't got you, ain't got you, baby, you don't know what it's like.
And that is beautiful, isn't it? It's amazing. Is that being played, somebody said, in Argentina?
Yes, it's in Argentina, and they do not air it in the United States. The reason why it's not aired in the United States is I think it's twofold. One, because it celebrates childbearing. Like all the mess in that commercial, and then to come out and be like, we're having another one. Like, if that doesn't embody what real parenting is, like, this is my take on it. I want to get yours, but if you're a mom right now and you're just totally overcome with laundry and dirty dishes and the mess of your kids, while with the ingratitude of the child and all that goes along with motherhood, like, take a moment to just think of this precious life made in the image of God that is going to do amazing things for the King of Kings and Lord of Lords if we set him down the right track. Like that, and that's the joy you see of these two parents. They're just like, another one. How great is that? I don't know. That was my take on the video.
Oh, that scene of them dancing when they found out they were going to have another child. That's one of the things MacArthur hammered in this book, that, children are a gift from God. They belong to God. They're a gift from God. And we have done such a tremendous disservice. Matter of fact, MacArthur said that two of the great blessings of life, two of the greatest blessings God has given humans is marriage and children. And obviously we agree with that. But so many young people today do not believe that finding out you're pregnant is a thrilling thing to experience. And, we've all heard about these dinks, dual income, no children. This whole group that's on social media and everything, they're celebrating the fact that they'll never have children. It literally breaks my heart. Children are the greatest thing. I tell my girls, I've told them, they're now 27 and 31 years old. I say, you have brought me more joy than almost any other single earthly thing in this world. This morning, my daughter just moved here from Alabama, and she's still staying with us for a few days while they're getting the house ready. And this morning, my 2-year-old granddaughter, I heard her in there fussing in her crib, and she's staying in a separate room from her parents. And so I literally went in there and got her. And I held my little, almost 2-year-old granddaughter. I literally thought I had died and gone to heaven this morning. She's a doll baby. And to think that there are people in this world, in places where you cannot play a commercial like that. Because it's politically incorrect to celebrate the birth of children. That tells you how far we have fallen. But listen, the good news is the biblical worldview is the beautiful worldview. It's the one that works out the best in the real world. And here we are. Here we are, man. We've got a message for young couples, young moms. What a privilege to be raising your kids. And Ben, you're right in the middle of it right now. You've got one running around your house.
Oh my goodness. So we're very careful to teach our son, even at 3, the difference between male and female, boys and girls. And my wife the other day was with Cranston. He just turned 3. And he was going, now boys like to play in the dirt, and boys like to do this. She's listing off all these things. And, our neighbor girl across the street, like, she doesn't maybe not like that as much, and so he's explaining all this thing. And she's listing all these things that boys do. And he looks up at her and goes, and boys like to cuddle with their mommies. It was the sweetest thing.
Oh,
it was
man.
like, and it just, they're wonderful. They're just wonderful.
Oh.
It's such a blessing, and we have made it it is a great evil to denigrate the birth of a child. And it's such a wonderful gift. And Coke is using this wonderful gift to sell Coca-Cola. Like, think about that.
At the end of the day, what's it tell you about Coca-Cola? They'll be on any side of the coin as long as they can sell
to make
Coke.
money. Yeah. Well, it also shows you that it works too. Like there is something inside of us that says we do love children. We really do love. We've just been lied to so much in America, and they're trying to take that warmness of our love for children and sell Coca-Cola, and we should take that warmness and equip the next generation. Hey, our next video is kind of related to this, and that is Harrison Butker and these ladies talking about her. This is wild.
the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, who has got to be the most sexist, white supremacist I have ever seen in my life. Watch this.
I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
I hate him.
It's unbelievable that at a time, this last football cycle, where all of these women are attracted to the NFL because of Taylor Swift. Right. And here's this incredibly successful woman, Taylor Swift, that has this amazing work ethic. And then I forget that this type of person exists everywhere. And this is evangelical Christianity. What he said is so disrespectful, to such a large portion of women. And it's so dismissive. I hope that he is canceled to hell and back. And I feel so sorry that his wife has to sleep with him.
Well, there's your tolerant feminist right there.
Yes.
Wonderful, warm, loving, tolerant feminist.
It is absolutely wild, the language they use. I find this, I'd be curious what you think about this, Jeff. I find it interesting that they actually played the clip, because most people that I've seen parody the clip and they say, well, he said this and this and this and he didn't say it. Like, go back and listen to that clip. We'll just play just the clip of what Harrison Butker said really fast.
I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Like, what's wrong with that? Like, why are you even bothered by that?
Well, man, I didn't know that this MacArthur book was going to be so useful for this episode, because literally he talks about not only the war on children, but really the war on women in this whole book. And man, I don't know if we're ready to open this can of worms, but I'm going to. Feminism in its latest forms and its worst forms has utterly destroyed women. Everything from obviously the sports issues where they're wiping out women's sports. When you have a biological male running and swimming and all that stuff against women, it's just unfair, and it's completely destroying women's sports. But it's, to be honest with you, Ben, I am more and more convinced that God's good design is what we have rebelled against. We have rebelled against it, and we have convinced women that they would be happier going to work for, say, a boss, male or female, for 40 or 50 hours a week, slaving at a place of employment while somebody else is raising their children. They're putting their kids in daycare at 6 weeks old and going off and slaving for some company who earns most of the money that you're helping them earn. And yet they see, the feminists say it's slavery to stay home and raise your children and help your husband. And you know what's so interesting? My daughters, thank God for them. They told me recently, one of them specifically said, Dad, there is a huge movement of women. And she said, Dad, they're not even all Christian women who since COVID have decided that staying home and working from home or working with their children or somehow creating a more situation where they can be home a lot more with their kids. She said, Dad, there's a groundswell. There's a huge movement of women who's saying, wait a minute. Why? We don't want to miss out on the privilege of being with our children. Now, I know I opened a can of worms, and there are exceptions, and there are some people who don't have children, can't have children, are single, and they're working. So I'm not making some blanket statement that women should never work and go into the workforce. What I am saying is I'm totally convinced that what Harrison Butker was saying, obviously I'm not a Catholic. I disagreed with him on the Latin Mass and a few other things he said in that speech, but he was nailing God's good design on manhood and womanhood and on parenting. And may God raise up an army of young men and women. I believe our children are in so much trouble today. They're in so much trouble because they didn't get the nourishing and the security that only a mommy and daddy in the home can give a child. And so, wow. But these women are vile. These feminists on this video are vile.
They're absolutely vile. I'm going to go a step further in opening a can of worms, and this is true. On Twitter, I told I had this feminist be so unkind and nasty to me, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I told her, I said, I hope you enjoy petting your cat. And the reason for that is every feminist has a cat or a dog because they are lonely and they are missing out. And you say, oh, that's not true, man. I'm telling you, go into the home of a feminist. And this rings true over and over and over again. There is an animal replacing a void that exists. That a child is not. Now, once again, I totally agree. I think it is right and holy for you to say, hey, there are some people that are called the singleness. The Apostle Paul was called the singleness. We're not saying that that you're in sin if you're single, and certainly not saying that if you can't have children, you're being evil. No, the point is there was a design in the beginning that was prescripted, that was a prescription for that was what God wanted for women, and this was this beautiful thing that men cannot do. It is impossible for a man to bring a child into the world, and yet we're not allowed to celebrate this amazing gift that God gives to women. And that is diabolical. How beautiful it is for a woman. I can't bring a child into the world. A woman was made for this. It's so beautiful. And we're over here trampling it underfoot as if it's something awful to celebrate. It's sad. It really is sad.
Yeah, the society is losing drastically. I mean, we're just not raising healthy children because we're not actually raising them. You know, we're letting other people raise them. And God created mom and dad. As we've seen, all the statistics show the healthiest kids in the world are kids who grew up in the home with their mom and dad together. And so anyhow, Harrison Butker, go for it. I hope he does amazing in the NFL next year. I respect that dude 100%.
One more thing before we jump off this is on Twitter. I saw this person saying that they were going to donate $5 for every one of his field goals to some type of abortion clinic. And to think about, so every time he makes a field goal, I'm going to do it. So your response to Harrison Butker honoring women as mothers is to say, I am going to help fund the murder of babies. Like the insanity of this. Our country loses its mind over a past presidential candidate who, did Christy Nolan run for president? Anyways, a political figure who shot a dog because it needed to be put down. And yet we will praise the murder of children. It is crazy. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, more truth from RenewaNation's own Jeff Keaton. The Biblical Worldview Show is a ministry of RenewaNation in partnership with the Center for Truth and Love. We are supported by faithful partners who want to invest in life-saving and life-changing kingdom impact. If the show is helpful to you, you can support us by subscribing, following, and sharing. You also can support us through giving. Make a tax-deductible financial investment today at RenewaNation.org. If you haven't read Jeff Keaton's book, A Life of Radical Faith, you can get a copy at RenewaNation.org. One thing I'm thankful for is Jeff's desire to live a life of faith committed to our Savior. God has used Jeff's vision to start a camp in the hills of Tennessee, an online Christian school called IlluminEd, a scholarship fund for students across the United States, a church and family publishing company focused on producing biblical worldview resources. I'm running out of breath. The list continues. If you are serious about living a life of radical faith, there are many resources at RenewaNation.org that can encourage you in your journey. Definitely check those out today. And we are back. I'm talking with Jeff Keaton. John MacArthur has come up on multiple occasions in this, and I believe Jeff was saying that everything John MacArthur has ever said, past, present, and future, he totally agrees with. He said, no, but there were some good things in his book. But Jeff, I am ready for this next clip. I don't know, are you, do you ever watch Tucker Carlson or Joe Rogan? You ever seen, we've got Joe Rogan interviewing Tucker Carlson. We've got two popular, do you ever watch these guys?
I've seen Tucker obviously through the years, some, and I've heard Joe Rogan clips. Never really watched a full show with him, but
no, I don't
I know
think
they're
anyone watches all 2 hours. They're so long. I don't know, but maybe I've never watched the full one. But yeah, let's take a look at Joe interviewing Tucker. I love this.
Evolution is real, and if there is this constant, I don't know, but it's visible. Like you can measure it in certain animals.
You can measure adaptation.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence that in fact, I think we've kind of given up on the idea of evolution. The theory of evolution as articulated by Darwin is like kind of not true. Right?
In what sense?
Well, in the most basic sense, the idea that, all life emerged from a single cell organism and over time, and there would be a fossil record of that, and there's not. And
there's not a fossil record of transitionary species, like species that are adapting to its environment.
There's
and they
tons
develop...
of record of adaptation, and you see it in your own life. I mean, I have a lot of dogs. I see adaptation in dogs, through the litter to litter. But no, there's no evidence at all zero, that people evolve seamlessly from a single cell amoeba. No, there's not. There's no chain in the fossil record of that at all. And that's why you don't actually hear people, you hear them make reference to evolution because the theory of adaptation is clearly, obviously true. But Darwin's theory's totally, that's why it's still a theory almost 200 years later, No, we have not found that at all. And I can't even guess. I mean, I have my own theories on it, but they're not proven.
What are your theories?
God created people, distinctly, and animals. I mean, I think what every person on Earth thought until the mid-19th century, actually.
Right, but
it's not a new idea.
They didn't have computers. They didn't have a general understanding that we have today of the process.
Do you think we understand more now?
Yes.
Really?
You don't think that we understand more today?
We understand way less. We understand so little that we're actually sitting here allowing, a bunch of greedy, stupid, childless software engineers in Northern California to flirt with the extinction of mankind.
Wow.
Okay, so evidently this wound up not on purpose. It's all connected back to children, is it not? Like we did not script out this episode. We chose some of the clips. But it is amazing how just in a conversation I had with Jeff as we were starting, I said, hey, you're passionate about the book. Why don't you talk a little bit about it? That now we're looking at this war on children winds up coming up in every clip we have on the show.
That's pretty wild. And I've never seen that clip before. And I did not know that Tucker shared some of our beliefs. That was surprising to me, the issue of evolution and creation.
So not only that, it was strong. It's like, well, maybe it's not. Maybe Tucker was like, absolutely. God, he's like, well, I have my own theories on it, but first of all, evolution isn't true. That was interesting that it wasn't true. But then how definitive he was. He's like, well, what's your theory? And then it was like, well, God created the earth. That was wild. Okay, Jeff, you've got to comment on this though. So I went and watched. I was gonna watch the whole thing. I still couldn't get through it. I think it's like a 2.5 hour video, but I watched like an hour. And I watched what led up to this. So this is gonna blow you away, which is why I put this clip in here. Okay, so they were talking about aliens and things like that, and Joe Rogan's kind of ventured down that a little bit. And then Joe makes his comment about the meaninglessness of life. And he goes, well, we're just this dot on some planet, and we really don't mean anything to anyone. And Tucker's like, yes, we do. And this argument ensues, and obviously friendly between the two of them, about Tucker arguing that people have intrinsic value, Joe arguing that they don't. And then it precipitates into the discussion about evolution and creationism. Isn't that interesting what led up to the, I feel like there's no better example of biblical worldview.
Absolutely. That's powerful. The fact that we were created in the image of God as human beings, different from all other species on earth, gives us value that's amazing. And, we've been saying this for a long time. I've had some evolutionists take me on this and say, oh, we don't believe that. But at the end of the day, if you believe that we just evolved over all these millions and millions, billions of years, and there's no designer behind this thing, there's no ultimate purpose behind it, then we literally are just a bunch of chemicals on a little planet in a massive universe that mean absolutely nothing. And human beings, because of the image of God, we were begging to know why we're here. Every human being on the planet wants to know, what is my purpose? That is truly one of the ultimate worldview questions that is ever asked. And Tucker nailed it. I mean, again, I don't agree with Tucker on everything either, but he nailed it. He nailed it. I mean, being created by God, being stamped with his image, is what gives human beings meaning and purpose, and knowing his word, which tells us what we're supposed to be doing here. I like it. Good stuff.
Darwinian theory was the bedrock for Nazi eugenics as well, and many people don't know that was actually the title of Origin of Species, was Origin of Species in the History of the Preservation of the Favored Races is the full title. And actually, I think there's even a subtitle that's bigger than that. But to have the term, I mean, can you imagine having the term favored races in 21st? like that book would be so rejected, and that is the basis of the person who came up with the entire concept of macroevolution. I also like that Tucker did a good job of distinguishing between adaptation and the whole theory. I thought he did a great job with that. I like that about the video too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I've got a funny one. Can we do one just for fun here? Let's take a look.
Do it.
Name the worst thing that could happen at a wedding.
There is no pasta. The pasta is not there.
I just told y'all, look, at a wedding, you don't have food at the wedding. There's no food at the wedding.
How do I put this?
Preacher.
Like a preacher.
Oh, the preacher. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. It makes me laugh so much. Oh, and it's so funny how he just throws that card down and just bends over and it's like, oh, this is hilarious. And this is actually Family Feud in South Africa. And I've had the opportunity to speak there a few times, a few different occasions, so longer trips there. And, that is just too funny. He thought he said, the way I thought of this, and I'd love to get your take on this, but the Bible talks about a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. And I just think, I actually think this is part of a biblical worldview, is, look, we live in a fallen world that's going to have miscommunication. And you can melt down over, Steve Harvey was totally in the wrong. And then once he realized it, it was like, his reaction could have been like, oh, I'm such an idiot, I'm so embarrassed. But he just laughed because it was, I love that. And I think sometimes, at least for me, I need that. I take myself way too seriously. And just to be able to step back and do this is just funny. It's okay. I don't know. That was my take on it.
I love it. I love it. We have this, I have a bunch of brothers and sisters, 7 alive now and had 8. And we have a running Marco and a running text all the time, every day. And we send each other so many funny videos and memes. And it's a place where we can all laugh. We're safe. We don't have to worry about what somebody's going to think. And we don't do anything off color or anything like that. But we have a lot of fun. So, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, no, pasta. Not something you eat. Okay, I've got one with Richard Dawkins, now calling himself a cultural Christian. I haven't got to discuss this with you yet, Jeff, but I'm looking forward to this one, so let's take a look at that.
Well, I must say I was slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead. I do think that we are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer. but there's a distinction between being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. And so, I love hymns and Christmas carols, and I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country in that sense. It's true that statistically, the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. I think it wouldn't matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful.
Yeah. So you have a man, Jeff, that basically spent his entire life, for lack of a better term, hating on Christians, and all of a sudden he is one? What is going on here?
You know what I think is so beautiful about this clip is one of the most well-known atheists in the world, whether he knows it or not, is admitting that the Christian worldview is the one that works out best in the real world.
Yeah.
That's what he's admitting. Yeah. And I just think it's beautiful. And there's a Chinese lady named Xi Van Fleet. She wrote a book called Mao's America that I read in the last little bit. It's a phenomenal book on cultural Marxism. And at the beginning of the book, she says, I'm not religious. By the end of the book, she's praising the Christian worldview and what it's produced around the world every turn. I want to write her. I want to write Richard Dawkins and say, yes, you're embracing the Christ who produced the Christmas carols and the hymns, yes, who inspired human beings to do that. You're not embracing the Christ. You're embracing what he inspired. Now, why don't you embrace him? And so I just thought, when I saw this some time ago, I was like, if that doesn't prove the point that we've been trying to make for so long, that the biblical worldview is the beautiful worldview. Yeah. And when he goes a little later in this clip and he says, no, I'd choose Christianity every single time over Islam. Why? Because Islam is not a religion based in truth, and it's producing heartache and heartbreak everywhere it goes. And so, I mean, this to me is just a powerful example. Yeah. Of the fact that the biblical worldview, it's kind of like what he says, though, I don't want there to be any more believers. I'm glad that people who believe are going down. It's kind of like saying, I love riding horses, but I hope all the horses die. It's just unbelievable.
Oh, that is hilarious. Oh, man. I didn't know this show was going to be this good, Jeff. Well,
it's fun. I love this.
I have, as a somewhat apologist, I have a bunch of takes on this, but we are actually out of time for this episode. And so I'll let Jeff give the final slam dunk in this episode. But in the next episode, I kind of would like to pick up with this video. And then we've got a lot of other videos to discuss. You are watching the Biblical Worldview Show, a ministry of RenewaNation. If you have not yet, make sure you subscribe to this show, like the show, give us a comment, encourage us, share this with your friends, and then go to RenewaNation.org and find more phenomenal free resources and other resources that can help you as you develop a biblical worldview and develop a biblical worldview in the next generation. Thanks for watching. Hey, you're still here. Thank you so much for watching the Biblical Worldview Show. Our show is supported by financial investments from viewers just like you. If you'd like to make a donation to the Biblical Worldview Show, you can do so by going to RenewaNation.org. And don't forget to subscribe and follow our show.